movie opens with elite sniper Drasa lying in her hideout like a hobbit in a burrow. She wakes up and prepares for her mission. Extending the barrel of her rifle, she takes aim at a distant airstrip where a private jet is landing. The moment her target steps onto the stairway. As soon as the body drops, she retrieves the spent casing, confirming the kill. The story shifts to former Marine sniper Levi. Plagued by insomnia and nightmares, he spends his nights racing through the city streets. By sunrise, he sits by the ocean, jotting down notes like a man with a Hemingway complex. His routine remains the same until an order arrives on his phone. He's needed at a military base. At the base, he meets a mysterious woman named Bartholomew. Judging by the lack of insignia on her uniform, she's an outsider in this world. She questions him about his habits and his work as a contract killer, referencing the fact that a psychiatrist had previously discharged him from service due to his lack of purpose.
I had no reason to.
You had no reason.
There's not a lot of reasons for me right now.
Bartholomew presents him with a new contract. Meanwhile, Drasa returns home to visit her mother's grave and her sick father.
Hey, Daddy.
She shares details of her latest mission and hands him the empty bullet casing. Her father keeps these as trophies in a special bag, a silent record of her kills. She confesses that a security camera caught her in action, and now her superiors in Moscow are ordering her to lay low for a year in a special assignment. But there's a problem. Her father is terminally ill. He won't survive another year. And if he does, he plans to play Russian roulette on Valentine's Day to be faster than illness. By September, Levi wakes up from anesthesia inside a helicopter. A female pilot confirms his identity, collects his belongings, and gives him his next instructions. He'll need to trek 38 kilometers to the designated location. With a parachute strapped on, Levi follows orders, jumps, and makes his way across a rugged, picturesque landscape until he reaches a deep canyon blanketed in fog. Waiting for him at the edge is JD, the man he's here to replace. JD briefs him on the setup. On the western and eastern sides of the canyon, there are 2 autonomous observation posts, each powered by generators and solar panels supplied by different European factions. Each outpost is manned by a single person. Contact between the observers is strictly forbidden. Nearby, there's a small garden, and the forest is packed with more wildlife than Twitter has opinions. The main duty of an observer is to patrol the perimeter daily, checking the integrity of the fence, maintaining the automated machine gun turrets, replacing suspended mines, and repairing any breaches in case something or someone tries to escape from the canyon below. Once a month, there's a mandatory communication check on the only available channel. The perimeter is lined with signal masking antennas that send false readings to satellites, making the canyon invisible from above. JD also warns Levi that if the security system fails, or if something breaches the perimeter from below, an aerial alarm will activate, triggering stray dog protocol. If that happens, the only option is to run as far away as possible. Most of the equipment here dates back to the 1940s. After World War II, the West and the USSR made a secret agreement, so secret that even presidents aren't aware of it, to guard the canyon's exit against what they call the Hollow Men. No one knows exactly what they are, but when 3 battalions of cavalry were sent into the canyon for a sweep after the war, none of them ever returned. JD believes the place is hiding a literal gateway to hell. The next morning, Levi watches as JD departs, unaware that as soon as his predecessor reaches the evacuation point, he doesn't receive his promised rest or paycheck. Instead, he takes a bullet to the head.
Thank you for your service.
A quiet execution reported directly to Bartholomew. October arrives. Levi sticks to the routine, patrolling the perimeter, maintaining the defense system, counting the mines, checking turret ammo, and attending the single monthly communication check. Bored out of his mind, he flips through the books in the tiny library and notices something scribbled behind a bookshelf, favorite quotes left behind by previous observers. One day, curiosity gets the better of him, and he picks up his binoculars to scan the opposite side of the canyon. That's when he spots her, Drasa, an attractive sniper stationed across from him. As if sensing she's being watched, she turns around, but without binoculars, she can't see him. That night, during a storm, Levi wakes up in a panic, another wave of PTSD gripping him. He knocks over a glass of water, shattering it and cutting his foot. As he bandages the wound, he notices a light flicker from the tower across the canyon. Drasa is awake too. November rolls in. On her birthday, Drasa goes a little overboard with cake and champagne. Feeling tipsy and craving some kind of connection, she suddenly feels an urge to communicate with Levi, the only other person out here in the middle of nowhere. She catches Levi's attention by firing a shot into the air, then holds up a piece of paper with a message written on it. Using his binoculars, he reads it and replies that contact is forbidden. but he can't resist the challenge. He raises a bottle of potato moonshine, toasting to her health. Their little celebration continues. Feeling playful, Drasa turns on some music and dances, then pushes Levi to show off his sniper skills. She shatters his cup with a precise shot, daring him to return the favor. He shoots her bottle in response. Smirking, she raises the stakes, balancing a second bottle on her head. But before Levi can take the shot, searchlights suddenly activate beneath his tower, scanning for movement. Leaning over the railing, he spots disturbing creatures crawling up the canyon walls. Without hesitation, he opens fire. A mine detonates, sending several attackers plummeting into the abyss. Drasa quickly joins in, activating the heavy machine gun on her tower. They nearly wipe out the wave of creatures when one of them climbs onto her balcony. She spins around and starts shooting, while Levi provides cover fire with his turret. Explosions from the mines send shrapnel flying, hitting Levi's shoulder, but the automated turrets kick in, mowing down the remaining creatures. The attack finally dies down. As Drasa patches up her wound, she looks across the canyon and thanks Levi, calling it the best birthday she's ever had. The next day, as they clean up the battlefield, they both spot a drone emerging from the thick mist below. It hovers for a moment before darting off into the distance, vanishing as mysteriously as it appeared. In December, Levi decorates a tree outside his tower with spare light bulbs, sending a holiday message to Drasa for Christmas. They spend the rest of the month playing chess from a distance, building snowmen in each other's honor, and continuing their unconventional companionship. Then February 14th arrives. Drasa feels a deep sadness, knowing her father is dying back home. She writes Levi a message, confessing that she wishes he could be there with her. Something about her words sparks an idea. His military-trained mind gets creative. Levi grabs a grenade launcher round, carefully removes the explosive charge, and unspools a coil of rope in his courtyard. Securing one end to his tower, he loads the other into the launcher and fires. Drasa watches in shock as the projectile lands near her feet, setting a small patch of ground on fire. Laughing despite herself, she stomps out the flames and ties the rope securely. Now, stretching between them, high above the canyon, is a makeshift cable connecting their two isolated worlds. Levi, leaving a handwritten dinner invitation, prepares for the big night. He shaves, picks a modest bouquet of wildflowers, and gears up for the journey. Hooking his carabiner onto the rope, he pushes off and glides over the abyss. Misjudging the momentum, he ends up dangling in the middle, forced to pull himself along hand over hand, something he's gotten used to after months of isolation. Finally, he reaches the other side, coming face to face with Drasa for the first time. She's prepared a rabbit pie, but insists he clean up first.
You smell.
Handing him clothes left behind by past watchmen. Once freshened up, they share a meal, talking about their fathers, their work, and the past that led them here. The evening flows into dancing, which seamlessly turns into something more intimate. Later, Levi confesses that he writes poetry and even composed one for her, though he refuses to recite it. Morning comes, and Levi readies himself to return before the scheduled communication check-in. But as he makes his way back, they realize too late they've missed another attack. The creatures are already scaling the walls of her tower. One disturbs a mine, detonating it and severing the rope. Levi plunges into the thick fog, barely managing to deploy his parachute in time. Without hesitation, Drasa grabs her own parachute and leaps after him. She crashes through the yellow mist, landing in a raging river. In the process, she loses her ascender, the crucial gear for climbing back up. Meanwhile, Levi wakes up hanging upside down, his parachute tangled in the trees. Before he can free himself, a massive caterpillar-like mutant lunges at him. He barely manages to shoot it off before cutting himself loose, only to drop straight into a thick, glue-like substance. The more he struggles, the tighter it constricts, because it's not just mud. It's a living, hungry organism. Just as it's about to clamp down on him, Drasa appears, blasting its razor-like jaws apart and pulling him free. They push forward through the eerie, fog-drenched forest, heading toward the eastern cliffside to climb out. Before they get far, they're ambushed by eerie riders wielding sabers, wooden, puppet-like creatures resembling the twisted offspring of Pinocchio. Fortunately, bullets work just fine on them. Mid-fight, Drasa realizes she's lost her ascender. Without it, scaling the 500-meter rock wall is impossible. Their only option now is to find another way out. Examining the fallen attackers, Levi makes a grim realization. They were once human. Soldiers from the missing battalions, trapped here for nearly 80 years. They continue through the cursed forest where gnarled trees resemble frozen, tormented skeletons. Eventually, they emerge into what looks like an abandoned military base. Tattered flags of Britain, the USSR, and the United States flap weakly from the flagpoles. The cracked asphalt hints at an earthquake long past. Stepping into a church, they find pews lined with skeletal remains, evidence of people who had once sought shelter here, only to meet their end. The skeletal remains scattered across the pews tell a grim story. Judging by the traces of cyanide, the people here took lives. As Levi and Drasa move deeper into the building, they're suddenly attacked by spider-like creatures made entirely of skulls. Before they can recover, the doors burst open, and the Hollow Men storm in, adding to the chaos. Realizing they're outmatched, the two blast a hole in the wall with a grenade and escape before the situation creates a hole in them instead. Sprinting toward the cliffside, they spot a reinforced bunker door hidden beneath the overgrowth. Inside, they find an abandoned research facility, covered in vines and decades of dust. The place looks ancient, with faded photos of the 1945 Yalta Conference hinting at its origins. Levi finds a reel of film, while Drasa locates a propane-powered generator. Once powered up, the old projector flickers to life, revealing a recorded message from a long-gone scientist. She explains that in 1946, after the invention of the atomic bomb, the West and the Soviet Union built this secret base to develop a biochemical weapon of equal devastation. However, a sudden earthquake led to a catastrophic leak, contaminating everyone in the valley. The inhabitants fused with plant life, becoming carriers of a deadly biological plague. The scientist notes that while exposure to the gas isn't immediately fatal, prolonged contact will alter a person's DNA permanently. Levi then notices something unusual. Amid the outdated tech, there's modern equipment from a private corporation called Dark Lake, suggesting the site was recently reactivated for study. He pieces together the meaning of Protocol Stray Dog. If security is compromised, an automated sequence will trigger a nuclear warhead, wiping out everything in a 4-kilometer radius. Time is running out, and the two prepare to leave before the contamination worsens. But as they step outside, they realize the mutants aren't as mindless as they seemed. Drasa's bag of ammo is left lying in the open, a clear trap. When she tries to grab it, a noose tightens around her leg. A skeletal rider yanks her into the mist. Levi fires at the rope, but the momentum carries Drasa into a gnarled root, knocking her unconscious. Without hesitation, he chases after her, tracking her captors to a massive missile silo, belching toxic red smoke. Inside, Drasa wakes up, tied up in the lair of the rider. Not a copper construct, but something more like rotting oak. Wasting no time, she kicks him off balance and struggles free. A brutal fight erupts, but no matter how hard she fights, the mutant only seems to enjoy it. Just when things turn grim, Levi arrives, putting a bullet through the creature's skull. Escaping the silo, they come across a massive, earthquake-damaged missile, one of the very weapons that caused the valley's contamination. They navigate through a grotesque, flesh-covered landscape, stepping carefully to avoid disturbing the pulsating mass beneath them. But Drasa missteps, her foot sinking into the tangled mess of organic webbing. She thrashes, getting stuck as the grotesque hive stirs to life. Levi slashes at the tendrils with his saber, but this only triggers an aggressive response. Thinking fast, Drasa fires a grenade into the writhing nest, igniting the entire mass in a burst of flames. As the mutant horror burns, the two take off before anything else awakens. On the surface, they find an old garage filled with ancient military vehicles. Levi quickly forms a plan. If they can power up a jeep and use its winch, they can climb the cliff without the missing ascender, racing toward the eastern wall. As Levi secures the cable, Drasa fends off approaching monsters with her rifle before jumping into the driver's seat and slamming the gas. The jeep begins crawling up the vertical rock face, defying physics like a Skyrim horse. But the Hollow Men aren't giving up. They climb after them, scaling the cliff and rope with unsettling speed. Locking the gas pedal down with a crate, Levi and Drasa fight them off, knocking their gnarled bodies into the abyss. Levi nearly slips, but manages to cling to the ledge, his gun punching a hole in the fuel canister below. Gasoline rains down on the creatures, and he ignites them with a flare. Flames consume the mutants. But the jeep doesn't escape unscathed. The fire spreads, forcing the duo to cut the winch and climb the last stretch on their own. At the top, Levi patches up Drasa's wounds, and they finally have the conversation they've been avoiding. What happens after this? Both know their superiors won't let them walk away. Drasa suggests running, but Levi argues that would only delay the inevitable. Others would take their place, and the valley's horrors would remain. There's only one way to end it. They have to destroy the Gorge. Using a grappling gun, Levi secures a line across the chasm, making his way back to his post just in time for the scheduled communication check-in. Instead of routine protocol, he's connected directly to Bartholomew. She asks about the situation. Levi lies, claiming nothing unusual happened, unaware she's already seen surveillance footage of their descent into the valley. She coldly orders him to eliminate the Eastern observer, knowing full well he won't comply.
You are to neutralize your counterpart.
At the same time, she assembles a strike team. The next morning, Levi and Drasa, now on opposite sides of the chasm, work quickly to connect explosives to the relay towers. But before they finish, they spot an approaching helicopter. It's already too late. Bartholomew's kill team arrives at the western outpost, but Levi is long gone. She orders drones into the air, scouring the mountains for the runaways. Levi and Drasa push forward, but soon heavy fire rains down from gun-mounted drones. One takes out a tree, sending a log crashing onto Levi's leg. He limps, but manages to shoot down both drones, while Drasa takes out the last one with a precise shot before they press on. Reaching their target location, they set up their final defense. Bartholomew, meanwhile, inspects Levi's abandoned quarters. Behind the bookshelf, she finds hidden messages from past observers. One, scrawled by Levi, catches her attention. Buddha's words: 3 things cannot be long hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth. Before she can process the warning, Levi and Drasa pull the trigger, detonating the charges on the relay towers. The explosion rips through the mountains, setting off a chain reaction along the perimeter. One by one, the towers collapse, eliminating the satellite jamming signals and exposing the valley's existence to the outside world. As the final tower goes down, an air raid siren wails through the mountains. The stray dog protocol has been triggered. Bartholomew and her mercenaries scramble for the helicopter, desperate to escape as the failsafe nuclear bomb detonates. Fire erupts from the valley, swallowing everything in its path. The shockwave slams into their aircraft, sending it spiraling into the cliffs. Levi, barely keeping ahead of the blast, is thrown off the ridge, crashing into the river below. As he sinks, Drasa, now safely distanced from the explosion, watches the inferno consume the valley. Time passes. In a secluded cave, she waits, marking the days on the wall. Clutching a sealed envelope Levi gave her, she hesitates, holding on to hope. But when weeks turn into months, she finally opens it at sunset, just as he asked. Inside are the very poems he wrote for her before they ever met in person. By April, Drasa has left her past behind, working as a waitress in France. One evening, as she delivers an order, she glances at a nearby table. And there he is, Levi. Alive. He smiles apologetically, telling her he's sorry for being late. Overcome with relief, Drasa rushes to him. They kiss as the sun sets over the ocean. And with that, the film ends.